Introductions. And thank you for joining us once again for R7 Radio from the great state of Arkansas. And yes, this is Steve Hoover with a face made for radio. Glad to have you with us tonight. I've got a good show. Of course, I did this whole show last night and nothing recorded. It didn't record on OBS software. It did not record on Blog Talk Radio. I have no indication tonight. We started this up about probably 10 or 15 minutes ago. Blog Talk Radio is not functioning. I do not know why. So I may end up just be doing it like this and then transferring it to an MP3 and putting it out on Blog Talk Radio. I don't know. I want to be able to do it live so that I can have call-ins, but I also want to videotape it, so I've got to get it figured out. Anyway, let me pray for us. I will read our verse of the night, and then we'll get started. Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this time that we get to spend doing this broadcast. Lord, I pray that you'll be with us during the course of this, that we'd have a good time, that it would be educational, uplifting, and that it, more than anything, that it would be glorifying to you. And who knows, maybe somebody would give their life to Jesus because of one of these shows. Wouldn't that be great? If I did hundreds of these shows and one person got to be in glory one day because of it, it would all be worth it. So thank you for all that you let me do in my life to serve you and to build the kingdom. We love you and thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. So I'm going to read our verse. I'm going to get it right here off of my handy little Take With Me Bible. And so Romans 11, 4 and 5 says, "But what does the divine response say to him? I have reserved for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. Even so, then, at this present time, there is a remnant according to the election of grace." And that's how the name comes up. That's how we got Remnant, or R7 Radio. It stands for Remnant 7, because the Lord has set aside for himself, not just in this time, but in all times, he's set aside for himself a remnant of people that serve him and serve him alone. And so we are a remnant. And 7, of course, being the number of completion. And so Remnant 7 Radio, I just like the way it sounds. So I'm going to start off tonight because what I want to do is I want to talk about something that I find very fascinating. And so it comes from the mind of Bill Whittle, and great mind that it is. So I'm going to let him do a little bit of this introduction, not much of it. I just took a little clip from episode 47 of the Stratosphere Lounge. You can find that on YouTube, episode 47, and you can go and check that out. But here he is kind of introducing his idea, and then I'll take it from there. Now, before I play this clip, I do want to remember to thank Jerry Spencer. Advise you guys to go to jerryspencer.com, or it might be Jerry Spencer Ministries. You know what? Let's just look it up because I can. It's my show, and I can do whatever I want to do. It should just pop right up. jerryspencer.org is actually what it is. jerryspencer.org. That'll take you to his ministry page. They have just come back from Ethiopia, where they saw over 210,000 professions of faith. Now, we were there, as you know, in January, and there were 4 of us out there preaching, plus Jerry on days. We had our translators, but we were in the back of dump trucks, and we saw 90,000 professions of faith then. And so doing a lot of good work over there, and we might talk about that a little bit later. But he underwrites this show, so thank you to jerryspencer.org. You can catch his shows at 2 o'clock every Sunday, the Jerry Spencer Bible Hour. So that'll be tomorrow, 2 o'clock. You can tune in and listen to a great sermon by Jerry Spencer. And once again, thank you, Dr. Spencer, for your support there. So let me play this little clip, and then we'll get into kind of what I want to talk to you tonight. So here's Bill Whittle talking about the common sense resistance.
There, you want some blasting metal to launch this CSR thing? How about a little sound as some radical feedback? Hi everybody, I'm Bill Whittle, I'm your host of the Stratosphere Lounge, and this is going to be getting dark in here. This is going to be the special Stratosphere Lounge edition for the Common Sense Resistance. I have got a lot of great stuff oh, come on. A lot of great, see, they're monitoring me. The NSA's already, they're already pushing things down here. What is going on? Am I just getting messages? Hang on a second. Weird. Yeah, for sure. They're monitoring the phone calls. They're trying to strangle the signal. But as everybody knows, the signal will get out.
And so there it is, episode 47. That's just the beginning of it. So go and check this out. So it's funny that he experienced that technical glitches there. I'm having the same problem this evening. I have my Blog Talk Radio is up. Everything looks like it's operating, but it seems to me that OBS software is not communicating with Blog Talk Radio. And so, I'm going to go over here just real quick and play my Everybody Knows. I don't think I'm going to be able to hear it. Yeah. See, I can't hear that at all. So I don't know if it's playing on Blog Talk Radio. I don't know what's going on. So let me hit the pause button and quit that. And so we're just going to let that play in the background. I'll see what it has to do later, and if nothing else, I'll just delete it, and I'll change this to an MP3 and put it over there later. So tonight what I want to talk about is this common sense resistance that Bill is talking about. Now, I've sent out a couple messages to places like the Stratosphere Lounge on MeWe and to the Right Angle group on MeWe. I've sent an email. And I know Bill and all those people, they're very, very busy. I'm not in any way complaining. I just haven't gotten an answer. So I don't know if anything went anywhere with the common sense resistance, or if it went very far. It may be huge, and I'm going to sound like an idiot. But I think it's a great idea. I just found out about it, maybe a year and a half ago when I stumbled onto Bill Whittle and just became interested and started watching the Stratosphere Lounge. But I want to tell you, you can go over to episode 47, and I suggest that you do. Two things I suggest you do. Go and watch Stratosphere Lounge. They're free on YouTube. Just look up Stratosphere Lounge, start from the beginning and go through. Bill is he's a philosopher. He's a political pundit. He's conservative. He's a very interesting guy. And so you can go and listen to him. But you can also go over to billwhittle.com. In fact, I made up a little ticker. So let's go over to that. I'm going to use my little logo thing. It's cool too. Boom, and back over. And so you can go right there, billwhittle.com, Common Sense Resistance, and check that out. And for $10 a month, just $10 a month, you can become a member at billwhittle.com, and you get a lot of great things. He's got all these different channels. So for instance, they have one of these things is called the Stratosphere Lounge. And that's what you listen to. It's on YouTube. It's also there at billwhittle.com. They have one called The Right Angle. Now that's with Steve Green and Scott Ott. And both great guys, political pundits, conservatives, and so they have this little discussion that's really cool, and they do different topics through the week at billwhittle.com for members only. You can go backstage and kind of watch their prep for it, so that's cool. You have the Firewall, a thing called Afterburner, the Nexus Report. He has some movies that he's working on that I can't wait. I just hope these things get finished. One is called Big Bat Problems. And not Big Bat Problems, Big Bat Problems. It's a question, and it's a very interesting concept. You can find all out about that on, when you're listening to the Stratosphere Lounge, but you can check out their progress on Big Bat Problems. And then also another project called Aurora, and I think he's actually working on some things called the CSR, Common Sense Resistance. So back to this. I heard on episode 47 that he was going to start this program, but he had to have 510 new subscribers. Now, if you go over to billwhittle.com and you subscribe, that's only $10 a month. $10 a month, and you get all this information. You can get some real news. You can get some logical interpretation of the day's events from Scott Ott, Steve Green, Scott Ott, and Bill Whittle. And, just a ton of information. He's also got this thing that's really cool that would be worth your $10 a month, just to have the virtual president, which is really cool. It's he dresses like a president would, and sometimes he's in the Oval Office. or he's addressing Congress and answering questions as if he were the president, answering questions the way a conservative who is able to articulate well would answer the questions. And so that's really informative. And so anyway, I just can't say enough. So let me talk about the common sense resistance. The whole idea is to have these groups all over wherever. And so Bill's it's not like he's in charge of the common sense resistance. He's put it out there. He's created a logo. He's made it open source so that you're free to use the logo. You're free to use the things that come up with the common sense resistance, and everybody starts their own little nodes. Now, the idea that I got just briefly, the understanding that I have from his information on the introduction of this from episode 47 on the Stratosphere Lounge, was that you would have these nodes, 5 people, no more than 5, no less than 5, and the logo is a hand closed like this with a wrench in it. I should have had a picture of that ready. I don't think I can just pop that up very good. But anyway, I've got it on my business card. I've got it on coffee cups. If you go to Common Sense Resistance and hit images on Google, it'll bring up the logo and also this little thing. Let me change the ticker here, and we're going to go over to this. The Common Sense Resistance, the catchphrase or their little saying is, "Tyranny never sleeps, neither do we." I think that's really cool. And so I would like to be a part of this. So you got 5 people in a node. Once they've got enough of the subscribers, new subscribers, because it costs money for them to produce the videos that they want to produce for the Common Sense Resistance, and to do the things that needs to be done to make this work in a practical manner. So what you do is you get your 5 people for your node, and then he's got a name generator. So you send in your group. It's 5 people. You have 5 active emails. You send them to Bill Whittle, and then he uses a name generator. And so you might end up being CSR Buick. That's the name of your group. It's your call sign. And so there's 5 of us. Let's say I'm in that, so I would be CSR Buick 1. Let's say my friend Mark Foster joined. He would be CSR Buick 2, and so on and so on. Now the beauty of this is you don't have to just be in one node. You could be in a few. So I could get 5 people there. Then I can go and I can find another 4 people. For instance, let's say one of my Common Sense Resistance nodes would just be preachers. So I would just find 5 preachers, and all we do is we talk about the day's events, or we do commentaries, do essays, blogs. I would love to get people, as soon as I get Blog Talk Radio working, I'd love to have people come on Blog Talk Radio, get a half an hour every day free. And so I would advise these guys to set out a half an hour every weekend and just make a commentary on things that are going on. And that would be our Common Sense Resistance node there, Buick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I could start another node that I could be a part of. And let's say it randomly comes up and it's red, CSR red. So now I'm CSR red 3, but I'm also Buick 1. Well, on this node, let's say that's more of my political bent. So I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to people about politics. I'm going to talk to people about the things that are going on, and using some common sense, I hope. Anyway, you get the idea. So it could be plumbers. You can be pilots, farmers, anybody that wants to get in on this. You get 5 active emails and you send them to Bill. Now, I want to reiterate once again, I don't know where this stands. This was reported 2 years ago. I may be way out of line. But the beauty of what he has set up is that even if they're not doing it anymore, it can still be done. The cool thing about it would have been to be able to send in the emails and to have the code name. I would like to do a recruiting node where all we do is we recruit people to go and become members of BillWhittle.com so that they're, getting these $10 a month. Folks, it's the best money you can spend politically. And I mean that with all sincerity. If you're sending $10 a month to the Republican convention, stop and send your $10 to Bill Whittle. Or if you're sending 30, send 20 to whoever you're sending it to. Take 10 and send it to Bill Whittle and get on there and be informed and encourage your friends to do the same. So you become part of the Common Sense Resistance. I think it's pretty cool. And so so his idea is, and it's all got this, the logo. It's got a lot of symbolism, a lot of symbolism. And there's a reason for that, because it resonates with people. And so you've got this hand holding a tool. It's an open-ended wrench. And so you got 5 people. There are 5 fingers in the hand, and the hand grabs the wrench, and it can either fix things or it can disassemble things. So I think that's kind of cool. You've got, like, to fix things, righty-tighty. You've heard that. So you would say, okay, we're going to start a clockwise operation. We're going to fix something that's broken. Or, you've got the left out there, and they're touting a bunch of crud, and so you're going to disassemble that. So you've got a counterclockwise operation that's going on with your node. I just think it's really cool. Everybody works together, helping each other out, and it's just an amazing idea. So I consider myself a proud member of the Common Sense Resistance. I've got even my show R7 Radio. The logo is that logo. And once again, I had to check before I actually did this show, or did too much of this show, to make sure that it was actually all right, because I couldn't find the information, but I finally found it from episode 47. And indeed, he goes in, he says it's open source, you're free to use it, you're free to do what you want. He's got a couple of rules that he set aside, or that he's put down in the practical world, where this could come into practice. And I think they're easy. So go watch 47 and see what they are. But even with that, you don't have to follow the rules. I mean, there's no way to enforce it. Other than if this is going on, and I hope that it is. I hope that somebody writes me back, or somebody sees this show and says, yeah, Hoover, get your 5 guys. The CSR is strong and going well. But if not, I would love to be a part of reinvigorating it, because I think it's just a wonderful idea. It's not just a wonderful idea. It's not just a practical idea. It's a fun idea to be a part of this resistance. And we could have our own Facebook page. I can't find one. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go look right now on the Facebook and just see if there's a CSR page. I don't know. Isn't that silly? I've done this whole thing, done all this research, and not even checked to see if there's an actual CSR. Now, it looks to me like our internet is running really slow. So that may be another reason, that we don't have any, that's not even responding. So that's no good. Common Sense Resistance. Don't you love to sit here and watch me get on the computer? And, So it looks like I see the Common Sense Resistance. I see the logo. Doesn't look like there's any activity on it. So let's see. There it is. Yeah, it's been a long time. So yeah, I'm afraid that nothing's happened with the Common Sense Resistance for a while. But maybe we can fix it. We can do a clockwise, thing. I don't know. There it is. One more thing I want to show you on this that I thought was cool, that's kind of because there's a lot of this, it has some different sections. So there's a practical section that I've kind of talked about, but then there's the fun of it. It's like a role-playing game. And so he talked about, all of us, kind of doing videos as if we were in the future. The government has fallen, or the government has taken control of everything. And for instance, they've got it to where, and this is very, this idea is biblical. I mean, talk about the mark of the beast, but he's talking about a chip that's put in the wrist. Now, those of us that read the Bible and believe that it's factual and everything that it says, it would probably be on the back of the hand or in the forehead, and we would call it the mark of the beast. But these people have dug it out of their arms. They've gone off the grid, and, everything's being controlled by the government. And, of course, they're going to sell it like it's a no-brainer. They're going to be like, why wouldn't you want to be a part of this? Why would you want to live off grid? I mean, you got this chip in your arm. You don't have to worry about banking anymore. Your credits from your work are automatically loaded, and you can walk into a grocery store. You buy your groceries. It's automatically taken from your account. You don't have to worry about paying taxes anymore. That's automatically done. It's got all of your medical stuff on there. You could never be kidnapped. I guess you could be kidnapped, somebody cut your arm off. But, they know where you are all the time. They know what your vital signs are. It's got all your medical records on there. And another thing, why wouldn't you want this? This way you know where your kids are all the time, and you can keep track of your kids, and nobody can harm your kids. Only evil people would want to do this. And then there's a group of people who are not willing to give up their freedom. And so they leave and they become part of the common sense resistance. And so the idea behind this is that all of us would also be making these little videos. And I thought that was really cool, this idea that you're down in a sewer, or you're in a bombed out warehouse, or a burned out someplace, and you're just accessing a little bit of internet. You're breaking in. He even talks about having these a thing that we call the Enigma machine that allows us to do this broadcast. We send it in, it gets broadcast, however all that works. Just kind of a cool idea. And so you broadcast these little videos, and it would be fun to make these videos. So I'm going to show you a little clip. It's probably, I think, 2 minutes of a guy that took this, ran with it. You can also find this on YouTube. Just look up Common Sense Resistance skit or video, I think is how I found it. And there's this guy, and he does it. It's about 10 minutes long. I'm just going to show you a couple minutes of it. And so here, watch this with me.
Bill, I don't know how much time I've got, but you and Jeremy, you were right. I should have listened. I should have left earlier. When the banks failed, I just thought maybe things had settled down. And then the rioting started, and I just hunkered down. I guess I just froze in place. I had plenty of food. I'd stocked up the freezer. I'd taken that precaution, but there was food for 2, maybe 3 weeks. But then the power went out. $1,500 worth of food, and within 3 days I was eating out of cans.
See, that's pretty cool. And so the idea is that we would all make up these different videos with our different groups and stuff, so there'd be a lot of fun in that. I just think it's a cool idea. Go and watch episode 47 on the Stratosphere Lounge on YouTube. Now, I'm going to try to do a segue song. It's not going to work. For some reason, my let me try to put it on there and see if this plays. I'm going to play a little Never Give You Up clip, and it's not registering at all on OBS. So whether it's playing on the radio or not, I have no clue. But there it is. A bit aggravating and a bit distracting, so I'm just going to let this go. I'm not going to do any more at all with the Blog Talk Radio right now until I know if it's working. So let me just continue. We're going to move along and segue into our next subject that I want to talk about. And the subject is movies. What has happened to our movies? I went and saw Solo not too long ago, probably 2 weeks ago, just right when it first came out. And if I'd never seen a Star Wars movie, if I hadn't been so involved in the Star Wars genre, and I just walked in and I watched that movie, I'd have thought, I'd have been like, yeah, it was an okay movie. The problem, and really I wouldn't have been like, ooh, that's a great movie. It was a good movie. It was fun to watch. But, I started watching Star Wars when I was 11. And I went and saw Star Wars many, many times in the theater. And then, of course, we all saw the last 3. And I remember the emotional roller coaster ride when things like, when Yoda says, no, there is another. And you're all like, who's the other Skywalker? And we just waited for years and then saw the next one and how cool that was and life-changing. And so now you've got a story about Han Solo, who arguably is the greatest pilot that's ever lived. He's huge now in an American icon, played by, of course, the wonderful Mr. Harrison Ford. And I wanted to make a connection with Harrison Ford. Listen, the kid didn't need to look just like Harrison Ford, but I wanted to see his actions. I wanted to see something of Harrison Ford in the actor that's playing Solo, and it's just not there. I never made the connection. You remember River Phoenix played the young Indiana Jones in one of the movies. And I remember hearing about that, and I thought, River Phoenix, I like him, okay, but he just doesn't remind me of Harrison Ford. But there's a scene in the beginning of the movie where he's in a cave, and he turns and he says, why don't you go get him? He does this little thing where he's talking to one of his friends, and I'm like, boom, that's Harrison Ford. I mean, he just nailed it. And then I was connected, and then from then on, when I think of, Harrison Ford as a youth, it's River Phoenix. So I wanted to have some kind of connection like that, and there wasn't any. So that was very disappointing. Thought they did a decent job on Lando Calrissian. Thought they did a decent job on several of the things in the movie, but a lot of things are unbelievable. One of the things that I'm going to complain about, that I'm probably going to catch it over, is I hate it when they just have to throw a gal in somewhere to either be the bad gal, the bad person, or the good person. If it comes up and it flows naturally, I don't have a problem with it, but I want it to be believable. Let me give you an example. Very rarely do I believe when a gal and a guy are going toe-to-toe, head-to-head in a fist fight, it's very hard for me to believe that this girl is just whipping the crap, out of the guy. And you say, well, that's sexist. No, it's just fact. I've been alive long enough to know that there are a few women out there who can kick a guy's butt. But it doesn't happen very often, and they have to at least have the bulk and the muscle capacity and the training to get it done. So I'll give you an example where I bought it, and that was Gina Davis. She was one of those gals that could do things like that. Pretty gal, elegant gal, but she was just beefy enough that when she was fighting with a guy, you could believe it. I remember Treasure Island. I thought, yeah, I'm buying this. But for the most part, I just hate it when they do that. And so they did that in Solo, of course. And you're going to get some spoilers here. So, if you don't want a spoiler, just fast forward about 5 minutes and I'll be done. And so I just didn't appreciate it. I haven't appreciated a good Star Wars movie as part of the package for quite a while. And that's very disappointing because they could have done such a great job at it. The other one that was really upsetting was Infinity War. Had I gone into that, somebody would have said, okay, now before you go and see this movie, I want you to know that there's going to be another movie, and there's going to be some problems at the end that are going to be fixed in the next movie. I would have been fine, but I went in and I watched it. I didn't have that information going in. It would have been like, watching Lord of the Rings, the first one, and not knowing that it was a trilogy. And then, getting to the end of the movie and being like, and so that's how I was. Now, luckily, I'd seen enough of the Marvel comics to know that there was going to be something at the end. And so my son, really quick, he went and saw it with me. He looked it up. He said, yeah, there's something at the end. Let's check it out. So we watched to the end, and, of course, Nick Fury's doing something, and he's got this little comm communicator thing, and something comes up. I don't know what it is. I'm not one of the big diehard fans. And so my son looks that up, and he says, oh, it's a Captain Marvel. And so I guess Captain Marvel's going to come in on the next movie, and they're going to do something that's got to rectify the fact that, spoiler alert, half of the people get killed. Half of the heroes just die. And there were a couple other unbelievable scenes. I didn't buy that Star-Lord would have sacrificed the planets after he goes on and on and on and on about how you shouldn't do that, and then he does it. It's just a lot of sloppy writing, I thought, in both of those movies. And so back to my question, what has happened to the movies? Man, listen, I want happy endings in my movies for the most part. Now, there are some exceptions. War movies, if it's a true story, okay. One of my favorite shows of all time is Dr. Zhivago, but it's because of the cinematography. It's because, is that the right word? Is that even a word? Cinematography. Better look that up. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. The way it's filmed, the costumes, all the things that they the places that they're at, and the acting is just tremendous. The storyline is good. It has a horrible ending. And so I don't like that part of it, but it's a pretty good film. But for the most part, I want my films to have happy endings. It's just like with... let's see, what's another? Okay, Meet Me in St. Louis. There's a good movie now. It's a musical. Speaking of musicals, you want to see a good movie that just came out recently. The Greatest Showman. What a fabulous film. I actually heard on the Right Angle, it was Scott Ott that went and saw it first and convinced Bill to see it. And so they talked about it a little bit. So I had to go see it. Immediately took my wife and my kids. I'd gone with my, who did I go with? I went with somebody. And then I went back and took my wife and my grandkids to see it. And the music was awesome. Hugh Jackman, what a fabulous guy. I actually met him a few years ago. He was doing a signing at an opening here up in Bentonville, and stood in line for a long time with my friend Mark Foster. I don't do that very often, but it was good to hang around with him and my son Cubby, and Mark's wife, and we went up there. And so I had all my Wolverine comics, and I was going to have them signed so that we could raise money for the orphanage that I was working at in Costa Rica. And they kept coming through and saying, okay, now there's a lot of people here. He's only got time to sign one item, so don't ask him to sign anything else. Don't even suggest that it happened. He would love to. He would love to spend all day with you, but he can't. There's a lot of people to see, so just introduce yourself, shake his hand, get him to sign the one thing, and move along. And so he wasn't out there yet, but they came through several times and told us that. So I tucked everything under I picked my favorite comic, and I took it up there. And so we were third or fourth in line, pretty quick. We'd been out there for quite a while in the cold, waiting outside. They finally let us in, and we did this little serpentine thing, and we were waiting. And he comes out, great guy, thinner than I thought. In Wolverine, boy, he looks really beefy, and I'm not a little guy, and so he's taller than me, but a thinner guy. But, just great presence, really nice guy. Sat down, shook his hand, gave him my comic book, introduced myself. Hi, I'm Steve Hoover. He said, hey, glad to see you. What do you do? I said, well, I'm a missionary in Costa Rica. In fact, the book that you're signing, I'm going to take it. We're going to auction it off for orphans down there. And he just kind of sat back and put his hands on the table. He said, let me shake your hand. The work that you're doing is amazing. That's just wonderful. And he shook my hand, and he said, I'm signing all your stuff. He took everything and he signed it. And so we did. I kept one for myself and auctioned off the rest and made some money and used it down in Costa Rica. So, but he's in this movie, The Greatest Showman. He plays P.T. Barnum. He's got a great voice. He's got a great stage presence. The movie was great. Halfway through the movie, there's a scene where he's off in going to kind of these concerts with this redheaded gal that's singing, and you're thinking, oh no, he's gonna screw this all up, and he's gonna sleep with this girl and mess things up with his wife, and his kids are back home, and what an idiot. And then he doesn't. He kind of gets to the point where she starts approaching the subject, and he says, I've become a distraction. I need to go home. And it ruins him. And but all his friends and all the people that he's worked with gather together. They rebound, and they end up with the circus and being under a tent. And the show starts with the song, This is the Greatest Show. It's here right in front of you. It's everything you ever want, everything you ever need. And he's at the big top. And then the movie comes full circle, goes through all these things, and that song is playing again. And it ends up with him sitting in an auditorium watching his girls at this production, and the song says, this is the greatest show. It's all that you ever want. It's all that you ever need. There's a great message in this show. It's a fun show. It's a happy show. I'm so tired of everybody thinking that oh, let's be realistic and have this show end crappy and all this stuff. And let me say once again, sometimes it works. Rogue One, actually, I got to tell you, I was okay with Rogue One. I thought that was a pretty good show. Once again, I get a little bit tired of the hero, them pushing this, the girl's the hero, the girl's the hero. Kennedy, she's one of the producers. I understand that she was wearing a shirt, got a picture taken of her that says the Force is a woman. It's just spitting in the face of, not that the Force can't be a woman, but it's just that push. And I just get tired of the political correctness. I get tired of the agendas out there. Just make a good movie, would you? Tombstone, great movie. I mean, not everybody does well in the movie, but the movie's a great movie. And so I want some happiness and some joy in the movies. And of course, you go back to all the good musicals, which I just love. Singing in the Rain with Gene Kelly, and I'd already mentioned Meet Me in St. Louis, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Let's start making some movies with some good endings. Let's have some more The Greatest Showman. It's really good. And yeah, we just want. I got to tell you, it's just a great representation of where our culture is going. You know, everything's got to be bad, everything's got to be horrible, and I get tired of the agenda. I get tired of them playing games with us. So let me flip this over and do a little bit of a little ticker information here, so that you guys can't call in. The studio, for some reason the studio stuff's not working, so I'm going to flip over, get a drink of my tea. Very refreshing, but you can see there at the bottom of the screen, it's in black. That probably should be white because I've got this shirt on. Let me see if I can, there we go, that's kind of cool. So you want to go, you can't call in, so don't try to call that number. But here it comes across the screen, the email, which I'm going to answer a couple questions that I got in the email here in a little bit after I get done griping about the media. Kabuka66@gmail.com. Kabuka66@gmail.com. Speaking of agendas and crud and the media, as we segue into this next section, are we not disgusted with what the media has done with this separating children at the border? My goodness. What a joke. Let me just say really quick here, folks, because I've even got some friends that would claim to be Christians that have weighed in on this, and they just, it's always constantly, I just can't believe this is happening, and we've got to be more Christian towards these things. Folks, this is what happens when people break the law. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. But if you've got a drug dealer, let's say you got a woman that's dealing drugs and she's caught, she's got her kids are taken away from her. They're separated until the judicial system takes care of whatever's going on. If you've got a guy that's robbed a convenience store and his kids are with him, his kids are taken from him until they can find the mom. If they can't find the mom, they go into foster care or holding places. It's not ideal. But these people should not be putting their children in danger. And now all of a sudden, everybody, because it's Trump. I mean, this was going on with Clinton. It was going on with George W. It was going on with, I hate to even say his name, and so I won't. You know who I'm talking about. He who shall not be named during his rule as king. I mean, as president. It was going on then. It's just so obviously this media agenda that, and by the way, it's the media and it's the Socialist Party of Democrats. The Democrat Party used to be an okay party. They had a few good ideas, and at least they loved the United States. They've been terrible for a long time, but more recently, they've just been hijacked by socialists. I cannot believe. I mean, I was in the Cold War in the 80s, which means I didn't do any battle. I just sat around waiting to have to do something against the Russians, probably. And but that whole time, communism and socialism, we just hated it, and we still do. It's evil. Socialism and communism are evil. There's not been one time that this has been tried in history that it didn't end up in multiple murders and just terrible. And that's why we fight against it. And to think that I would have lived to see the day that we would have somebody like Bernie Sanders, who's just openly a socialist, running for president. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So here's the media and the Democrats, the left-wingers, the radicals, which they've taken charge of the media, and anything that Trump does, they're going to call bad. I hope it's obvious to you. And then, of course, here's Trump, and he's signed a thing to keep these people together. I'm not really sure that's a good deal. We'll see how it plays out. But the bottom line is it's all an agenda of the media, and it's all hype to make, they don't have any facts. They can't sit across from us and take their facts and we take our facts and we sit down and have a discussion. They throw out a couple of things and then immediately it's bigot, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're blah, 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 blah. And so, tired, done, Tired of the political correctness, tired of the media agenda, tired of the Democrats pretending that they love America and that they love Americans. They don't. They love themselves. They love power. That's all they care about. So I'm just done. Tired of the race card, tired of a lot of things. And so I'm just done with those things. And I think that you should be done too. So that's my spiel on that. Now, I've got some questions that I really enjoyed in my email recently. So if you'd like to send in a question and have me do my best to answer at least what I believe on it, it's kabuka66@gmail.com. Let me put that back up there for you. Remember, you can't call in right now because it's blocked. But there it is, kabuka66@gmail.com. Hopefully you can see that better. kabuka66@gmail.com. So one of the things that I've talked about on my show before is my interest in the subject of biblical apologetics, and I'm kind of an amateur, by no means a professional. You want professionals, you need to get with people like Ravi Zacharias and Josh McDowell, and I'm trying to think of that other guy's name that I just listened to today. The Case for Christ. And I can't think of his name. It keeps almost being there, and I'm like, and then I lose it. Welcome to 51 years of age. Anyway, Lee Strobel. Boom! Thank you, Lord. Lee Strobel. Different guys like that. These are the top dogs, and I listen to them, and so I follow some of this up. In fact, what really got me started, that's the question, how did I become interested in apologetics? And part of it was I got saved when I was 7. Now, when I say saved, I want you guys to understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what the Bible says. I'm not talking about going to church, joining a denomination. I'm not talking about being baptized. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about what the Bible defines as salvation, the born-again experience. And so in the words of the Bible, if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart God has raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. That's what I did when I was 7. So I'm going to believe that what the Bible says is true. And I do. And so I had this born-again experience, and it was because I was already in church. I loved God. I loved my family. I loved Jesus. And so when my mom came home and told me that she had been born again, of course, I'm like, well, of course I want to do that. And so I prayed, and I said, Lord, I need you to forgive me for my sin and come and live in me and save me. And so I gave everything that I knew about me to everything I knew about the Lord, and I've been doing that ever since. And so that's the salvation experience. Once again, let me tell you what the Bible says. If you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. All that other stuff is extra. Now, salvation is easy. Being a disciple of Christ, that's hard. I mean, Christ was very clear anytime you read the Bible that if you come and follow me, your life is going to have problems. But you can have joy through that. See, that's the wonder. That's the mystery of salvation. There are people in Haiti who don't know what they're eating tomorrow that are full of joy because they know what they're going to be eating in 1,000 years. And that's amazing. So I was saved, and I just kind of plodded through, went to church, listened to everybody, and I believed everything that was going on. But I wanted to reinforce my foundational belief. And so I had to come to a point where I said, okay, why do I believe the Bible? That was my big thing, because I knew if I could come to a place where I could prove to myself that the Bible was a reliable source, then my foundation would be on Christ, and then the beginning of my building would be this apologetics. And apologetics just means giving a reason for what you believe. It doesn't mean apologizing, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a Christian. No, that's not what it means. Apologetics just means being able to defend what you believe. And so I started a course of research, probably, let's see, it's had to have been 25 years now, and I've been adding to it ever since. But Josh McDowell is the one that got me started. A good book to read if you're just starting off and you want to get a taste of it is More Than a Carpenter by Josh McDowell. You can pick it up for a couple bucks at your local Bible bookstore. And it's just little, maybe 200 pages. I don't know, short. But he's got a really big one called Evidence That Demands a Verdict, which is wonderful. The New Evidence That Demands the Verdict is what I would advise because it's got some updated information. But a couple of things that he pointed out that just I said to myself, this doesn't prove the Bible, but it makes it very interesting to look into. So this is what got me started. The fact that he has two things that he talks about. how the Bible came together. How was it created? And then second, the manuscript evidence. And then third, what really interested me was the prophetics. And so I wanted to look at all of those from a real practical standpoint. And so, people say, well, there's no scientific evidence. Well, there's a lot of no scientific evidence for a lot of things. There's no scientific evidence that George Washington ever lived. But there's courtroom evidence, and it's the same thing for the Bible. And so I started looking at this evidence. For instance, the Bible was put together over around 1,500 years. So it wasn't just written by one person. It's not somebody sat down and took a bunch of collection of old writings and put them together and polished them up. No, it took 1,500 years to put this together from 40-plus authors. It was written on 3 different continents in 3 different languages, Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. It was written by kings and farmers and tax collectors and doctors and fishermen. It was written in times of poverty and plenty, famine and war, all different times, written in different places. It was written in jails and in houses and in palaces, all these different places. And then on so many different subjects: giving, charity, honesty. How should you sell to people? How should you treat strangers in your land? How should you interact with your husband or wife? How should you, raise your children? And all of these authors over all this time in all these different languages from all these different walks of life all agree with each other. The Bible never contradicts itself. Now, I know there are people, maybe people watching this show right now, that say, oh, there's all kinds of contradictions. No, there appear to be contradictions. I understand that. Let me give you, for instance, one that's used quite often. Jesus goes across the Sea of Galilee, and he encounters a man who's possessed by a demon. That's what it says in one of the Gospels. In another Gospel, it says he goes across and he encounters 2 people possessed by demons. Oh, that's contradiction. One says 1, one says 2. Well, this is what it's like. It would be like if me and my son Dave plays drums. He's been in a rock band. He's very good. And so let's say we went to a concert together. We came back and somebody said, tell me about the concert. And I said, man, there was this great, really cool white guitar on there and this really cool drum that had a picture with had some fire on it. And then Dave said, yeah, there were actually 2 sets of drums there, and the guy was using both sets. One was electric set, one was just acoustic, and he would jump back and forth and do those drums. And so is that a contradiction? Because I said there was a cool drum set with fire on it, and then Dave said, well, there were 2 drum sets. I'm not contradicting. It's just one thing that I was concentrating on is what I was reporting, and Dave happen to see the other things. It's just stuff like that may appear to be a contradiction. There's no contradictions. For everything that somebody can come up and say, aha, here's a contradiction, there are great men of God who can go, no, that's not a contradiction, and here's why it's not. So that was really cool. And then there's the manuscript evidence, and I found that very compelling because you can go to places like Harvard, Yale, University of Arkansas, right here, just up the road in Fayetteville, and you can say, okay, what are some historical writings we can trust? And they would say things like Caesar and Plato and Tacitus and Thucydides and Homer, and okay, why? Well, because we've proven that those texts are reliable. Really, how? Well, the manuscript evidence. Oh, really, manuscript evidence. And how many manuscripts do we have? Oh, thousands, hundreds. Really? Do you know how many manuscripts Caesar wrote on his Gallic Wars? Oh, there's a lot, I'm sure. No, there's not. There's 7. 7 handwritten manuscripts. And so they go, well, that's enough to prove that it's historically correct. Okay, I'll buy that. Here's one of the things that I demand. I don't mind playing by the rules, but we're going to play by the same rules. So I don't allow people to have one set of rules for them or one set of rules for their historical writings and another set of rules for the Bible. If one of your rules is the manuscript evidence, okay, let's go with manuscript evidence. So you got Caesar, he's the only one that wrote about it, and Gallic Wars. And then not only is it how many manuscripts do you have, look at that red back there, isn't that cool? I have this new light, and it's controlled by my phone, but it seems to be jumping back and forth between colors. It's really weird. Anyway, So there's manuscript evidence. So how many manuscripts do we have? And then how far from the event is the first handwritten manuscript? So for instance, I just went the other day to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with my wife and my friend Bryn. Now let's say 2 days after that, I wrote about the experience. And let's say 3 years after that, Bryn wrote about his experience. The idea is you could trust my writing about my experience a little bit more because it's closer to the event than Bryn's. And so we have how many manuscripts and how close to the event. So here we've got, you can walk into any major university in the world and they'll say, we believe that the historically correct writings of Caesar and the Gallic Wars, there are only 10 manuscripts. And they were written, the first manuscript that we find is 1,000 years after the event. Plato, everybody knows Plato, everybody trusts Plato. There's only 7 handwritten manuscripts, 1,200 years after he lived. Thucydides, 8 manuscripts. He's considered one of the great historians of that time. 1,300 years between the time of Thucydides until this first handwritten manuscripts, and there's only 8. Tacitus, also a great historian. 20 handwritten manuscripts. That's pretty good evidence. 1,000 years after he lived. Homer, Iliad, pretty good. Now, I've heard 2 reports on this, and I don't know which one is correct. One says there are 643 manuscripts. One says 1,100. Bottom line, that's a lot of manuscripts. That's a lot of handwritten manuscripts, but they're all, the closest one we have is 500 years after Homer lived. Now, let's go to the New Testament and apply the same set of rules. 24,000 handwritten manuscripts, and many of them 25 to 50 years after Christ left the earth. That's incredible. And once again, that doesn't prove that the Bible's true, but it makes it so that you want to go, I better take a good look at this. And then the last part was the prophetic evidence, which was just is overwhelming to me. And you're not going to hear, you just don't hear very much about this, because for the most people, for the most part, people are just like, prophecy, But listen, if there's prophecy written down and it comes true, that means something, especially if there's a lot of it. And a great, for instance, is this prophetic evidence about Christ. There are over 300 different prophecies written about the coming of Christ. Now, up until 1948, that didn't mean much. We discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1948, 47. Can't remember for sure. But before then, what they would say is, well, you see, of course the prophecies match up because the manuscripts weren't written until after Christ, and so then they inserted those in there and made it look like, it was a prophecy that was fulfilled. The problem is, then we come along, 1948, we find the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we find manuscripts that were written 300 to 600 years before Christ, retranslating the book of Isaiah, which holds a lot of prophecies about Christ, and there's no change in the translation. That's another thing that was said. Oh, the translations have been changed by man over the years, and it's just can't be the same. Sorry, we have transcripts 600 years before the time of Christ, between 300 and 600 years before Christ. The book of Isaiah is retranslated into Greek, and there's no difference than the translations that we have now. Like 0.001%. Things like that would be the difference. Things like we spell color C-O-L-O-R here in the United States. They spell it C-O-L-O-U-R in Britain. And so that was amazing. So 300 prophecies about Christ. And there's a guy named, he's a mathematician, one of these statisticians, Peter Stoner. And he wrote for Science Speaks magazine and said that the odds of one man fulfilling just 8 of these prophecies were 1 times 10 to the 17th power. So it's 1 in 100 quadrillion. 1 in 100 quadrillion is the statistics of this being possible. And yet here we have Christ easily fulfilling at least 8 of these prophecies. My dog is over there scratching, trying to get into the door, and I'm going to ignore her. So, let me just give you a for instance. So in the book of Isaiah, it talks about Christ being born to a virgin, being buried in a tomb. One of the prophecies, this may not be in Isaiah, Ezekiel, somewhere like that, that he would be crucified, that they would gamble for his clothes, that he would be born in Bethlehem, that he would be from the tribe of Judah, that, let's see, I said they gamble for his clothes. I'm trying to come up with 8 right off the top of my head. I'm sure that they're there. Oh, that he would be, that he would spend time in Egypt. That's another one that, let's see, that's 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anyway, you can go look them up. I just drew a blank because my dog is bugging the crap out of me, scratching at the door. Just a second. Hold on. I turned the microphone off for your sake and yelled at her and told her to go away. She's not gonna. Anyway, so you got to take a look at that. And so this statistician, basically, he put it like this. He said, if you were to take $50 and bury them, I think it's a foot deep, across the state of Texas, blindfold somebody, mark one of those quarters with an X, the chances of that person finding that $50 with the X on it, blindfolded, in the state of Texas is the same as this amount of prophecies being fulfilled in the life of one person. That's pretty amazing. And once again, you may be bold enough to say that's not conclusive proof, but it certainly makes it worth taking a look at and going, wow. Because look, none of the other writings have that. The Quran can't do that. You can't even find a good translation of the Quran from the originals. It's been so degraded. The writings of Hindu, the writings of Buddha, all these, they just don't match up. They're not the same. And so I was pretty impressed by that. And so the study of, let me give you another example of just ways that people can be identified in time and space very easily. I can identify me with eight things that separate me from every other human that's ever lived on the planet just by giving you 8 things. Hold on, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my phone right now, and I'm going to call my wife, and I'm going to tell her to put Bell up. Won't that be fun? Right here on live on the video. So let's call Nani. We're going to get Nani on the speakerphone, and let's see if we can get her to help us out with the dog, because the dog's driving me crazy. Hello, Nani. You are live on the radio, so don't say anything that would not be appropriate for radio. Can you stick your head out the door and call Bella? She is driving me crazy over here at the door while I'm doing my radio show.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even know she was out.
Well, it's not your fault. She was fine up until about 30 seconds ago. But if you could call her into the trailer, that would help me out.
Alrighty.
All right. I love you. Talk to you later.
How much more show you got?
About a half hour.
Okay.
All right. Love you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so hopefully she's going to take care of that, and Bella won't be a distraction to me anymore. Okay, so here's the 8 things that identify me in space and time, absolutely separate from any other human. Okay, I'm a male. Lots of males have lived on the planet. My name is Steve. There are lots of males named Steve on the planet. My name is Steve Hoover. There, believe it or not, are lots of males named Steve Hoover on the planet. I am a male Steve Hoover living in USA. Now it gets smaller. I'm also from Arkansas. I'm also from Rogers. I'm also from Douglas Circle. And I'm also from 13034. So I've just given everybody in the world my address where I no longer live because I've moved from that address. But anyway, you see, that's 8 things that at the time that I still live there would have separated me from every person that's ever lived on the planet. And so we have 300 prophecies about Christ. Now, some of those are not obvious prophecies, but most of them are very obvious. Like I said, he's going to be crucified. By the way, that prophecy came about before crucifixion was even invented. Pretty amazing. So, does it prove it? No, but it makes it worth taking a serious look at, and that's what got me started in apologetics. So, thank you for that question. Another question that came up was really interesting because I got this question in the email, and it corresponds with a show that I watched that Bill Whittle did the other day. I was watching through the Stratosphere Lounge trying to find the one where he talks about the common sense resistance, episode 47, by the way. But he was talking about you can't legislate morality, and he did a good job. And I understand his point, and I agree with his point. And my question was exactly that. Why not just let people live their life? After all, you can't legislate morality. And Bill did a really good job talking about Christians and how that was the whole idea of Christ and the law and what God has done. He lays out the law to show us that we can't keep the law, that we are evil within our nature, and we needed Christ to come and die for our sins to free us from the curse of the law. And so that's exactly right. The problem is I don't want to legislate somebody else's feelings of morality, but we often legislate what they do. Let me give you a couple examples. Murder and theft. I can't make somebody feel like not murdering somebody, but I can make it illegal for them to murder somebody. I can make the consequences so bad that hopefully, for the most part, when somebody gets mad enough they really just want to kill somebody, that the law will deter them from doing that. Now, does that change the morality in their heart and their soul and in their being? No, it doesn't. But I can legislate things that hopefully will keep them from doing that. Stealing. People want what other people have. The government steals from us all the time. It's called taxes. And you can't make people not want to do those things. But I can make it difficult for them to do it, and I can give grave consequences if they do it. And so when we as conservatives, when we're fighting the battles against abortion, which is murder, that's another thing I'm tired of. I talked about being tired of the political correctness and all these agendas that are constantly being pushed on us. I'm tired of hearing it's my body. No, it's not. It is not your body. It is a complete separate body living within your body. Complete different DNA, and it's a life. It's a human being. And I don't want to tiptoe around you anymore. If you have had an abortion, you have murdered somebody. And if you plan on having an abortion, it's murder, and abortion is murder. Now, having said that, I have people that I know, that I love very much, who have had abortions. They were lied to. They were told that it wasn't a baby. They didn't know, or they had at least convinced themselves that, all these scientists knew what they were saying, and so they had an abortion, and then later found out that it was murder. There's forgiveness with God. There's grace with God, even for murder. Paul's a perfect example of that. He murdered Christians by the thousand before he came to Christ, and he was forgiven. And so there's forgiveness, but let's call it what it is. It is murder. Just like Christ said, pornography is adultery. It's not just the act. It's what's in your heart that causes this sin. And so sin is the heart at what we have a problem with, and we can't legislate that. You're right. But we can keep people from doing things that are illegal. So the question is, why not just let people live like they want to? Is because people are evil. They have a tendency to go in evil directions. All of us do. And so we have to have some kind of things in place. That's why it's illegal to commit suicide. People still do it. But, I'd like to see the statistics of people out there who just, laws have helped them stay on the straight and narrow. I know that there have been times where I really wanted to punch somebody in the nose. I just wanted to, and I thought they deserved it. And I thought they might even be better off if somebody just would beat some sense into them, but the law says don't. And so it kept me from it. It wasn't that somebody had legislated my morality. It was that somebody wrote down a law, and I feared the consequences of breaking that law. And so for things like abortion, yes, we can make legislation that makes that illegal, and I will continue to fight to do so. We fought to free the slaves. Let me ask you this. What's worse, slavery or murder? We had a war to free the slaves, didn't we? Now, by no means do I think we should have a war to stop abortion, but I do think that we should try our best to legally put things in place that makes it illegal to have abortion. And people say, well, they're just going to do it in back alleys. Yep, they're going to do it in back alleys, and that's a terrible thing. It doesn't make me want to go, oh, okay, well, then let's make it legal. Same thing with drugs. Drug use. Let's just make it legal. They're going to do it anyway. So, but I'm not going to make it okay. I'm not going to make it easy. Can I legislate their morality? No, I can't. But I can make it very difficult as I possibly can. And are people still going to do it? Sure, they're still going to do it. But there are going to be people out there like me, lots of people like me, by the way, who back in my early days, I broke the law and I got stoned. I messed around with it, but I quit doing it. I didn't do it as much as I would have had it been had it been legal, right? So was my heart being legislated? No, but some laws kept me out of trouble. So another one, homosexuality. Now, this one I may frustrate some of my Christian friends. I don't know. But I'm just going to tell you how I feel, because I feel different ways in different aspects of who I am. As a Christian, I want to do everything I can to love those people, care for those people, help them to understand that it is a mental illness, that it is a result of sin in their life, and that they may not choose their feelings, but they can choose their actions. So homosexuality, the act of homosexuality, is a choice. I don't care how you cut that. It's a choice. Let me give you a perfect example. There are millions of teenagers running around out there, Christian teenagers, let's use them as an example, and they were born with a drive to have sex with as many pretty women as they could find, as many pretty gals as they could find. That doesn't make it okay just because they were born that way. God says if you're a man, you get one woman, and if you're a woman, you get one man. It's the same for me. It's the same for you. It's the same for homosexual. The homosexual may have a drive. If he's a man, he may be attracted to other men. A woman may be attracted to other women. But God said, I made you, and here's the rules. And the rules are you either stay single, or you can stifle those desires, and you can marry a woman. And Christians, many Christians, people who have become saved, have gotten themselves out of those types of sinful personality traits that we are all born with. They just manifest themselves differently. Now, the reason that I'm going to get in trouble with people is because as an American citizen, what those people do in their home is none of my business. I'm a little bit of libertarian in those views. That's none of my business. It's not my business to go into somebody's home and tell two consenting adults what they can do and what they can't do. I just don't feel like that should be legislated by the government. By the same token, neither should they be able to intrude on the religious ceremony of marriage. Isn't that fun when an alarm goes off right in the middle of one of those talks? I got to take my pill, I guess, for cholesterol. Just finally come to it. I have to take a pill. So as an American citizen, what they do in their home is none of my business. What becomes my business is when they're half naked in a parade. That's not okay in public. That is not okay. And I can legislate that, and I would like to legislate that. I would like to make it so that that's not okay. It's offensive, and it's wrong, and it's certainly wrong to come into our schoolrooms and try to act like that is a normal way of behaving, that it's normal for 10-year-old boys who feel like girls to be able to go into the girls' bathroom. That's not normal. It's a mental illness. And so as an American citizen, I'm going to fight that with my vote. I'm going to fight their ability to do that. It looks like the cops are after me with this light on. Let me see if I can fix a little bit of that. Let's put a different color. I got this idea from Mr. Whittle, and so I got one of these flashlights. I got one of these lights. It's called a magic light. And now it's saying that there's no device found. Isn't that funny? So anyway, I guess we're going to have to leave it like it is. So can we legislate morality? No, we can't legislate people's hearts, but we can make laws that make certain things legal and other certain things illegal. That's really aggravating me. There we go. It's come back on. Let's see if we can change it in the middle of my show here to maybe blue. Red. All right, let's put it over here. Green. Nope, that just wants to keep changing, doesn't it? Let's put it on blue. See how that does for a little bit. So anyway, that's my spiel on that. So you have to be careful, because you don't want the government, that's one thing that we can mostly agree on, is that we want the government involved as little as possible. But some places we need the government involved. We need to have laws that say you cannot murder, and there are consequences for murder, and that includes abortion. We have to have things that say you can't be half naked in the street. See, it's only okay to do what you want to do when you want to do it if you're not putting it on anybody else. And that includes trying to make somebody make a cake for a homosexual wedding. That's called slavery. Anytime that you are going to force somebody to perform for you in a manner that they don't want to, that's called slavery. It's evil. It's an evil idea. Now, that applies. You take that to its logical conclusion, and you're going to run into problems, because then all of a sudden you've got a restaurant owner who's an idiot and wasted life, as far as I'm concerned, who for racial reasons says, oh, I don't want black people in my restaurant. Should he be able to do that? Sure, he should. He should be able to do that in his own restaurant. And I know I'm get a lot of disagreement from that. But if he owns the place and he's worked for it, he should be able to say that. He should be able to say in a restaurant here in Arkansas, this restaurant is going to be, people can come here and smoke if they want to. It's his restaurant. If people don't want to be around the smoke, don't go to his restaurant. Now, this guy who might get up, this horrible, shall I say, pig of a person who would say that because of a person's color they couldn't come to their restaurant, listen, let them go out of business. They're not going to get any business. They're not going to be able to stay in business that way. But should the government come in and tell people what they can say and what they can do in their own establishments? No, I don't think so. I think we have to be kind of careful with a lot of those things. But like I say, that's on a political, I'm part of the government of the United States level. My first duty is to the kingdom of God. So let me give you another, for instance. The Syrian refugees, this was really big a while back. And a lot of my Christian friends were saying, well, we should just let them come in and get them saved. That's not how it happens, okay? Look at Dearborn, Michigan. They came, they didn't get saved, they took over, they ruined the place. You can't even stand on the corner in Dearborn, Michigan and preach the gospel in safety anymore. That's not acceptable, okay? So we can't just let them in. And my word to them was, I would believe you a lot more if your house was open at night and you just left it open and anybody could come in that wanted to come in. No, you wouldn't do that in your own home, and we shouldn't do it in the United States. To me, it's just a ridiculous argument. Now, on a personal level, if there's a refugee here, I need to show them the love of God. I need to make sure that they've got food, they've got clothing, they've got shelter, and they know that they have the respect from a fellow human being. But on a political level, I'm going to vote for a wall. I'm going to vote for legal immigration. I'm going to vote for us to keep the laws in place. And so I think we have to be really careful with this idea of we can't legislate morality. I think we've got to be very careful with what we legislate. And so I think that's one thing that we can agree on. And we can sell. We can convince people that you being able to make your own decisions is better than other people making decisions for you. And that's what these terrible, terrible leftist socialist Democrats, they just sit around trying to tell other people what to do. They're sitting behind a desk somewhere. And so, Bill Whittle was doing a thing on this the other day, was talking about it. And I just agree. I agree 100%. You get into a room full of people and you say, ma'am, sir, you know what I think? I think that the Democrats want to do this health care. What I think is that you can decide for your family what's best for your family. It's not up to me. It's not up to her. It's not up to Hillary. It's not up to he who shall not be named. It's not up to any. It's not up to Feel the Burn. It's not up to any of these people. They don't know your family. They don't know what's best for you. They think they do. And so they want to tell you what to do. They want to get all up in your business and tell you what you're going to do. If I were running for president, that's what I'd say. I'd say, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you make your own decision. We're going to open it up to a free market, and we'll let that take care of itself just like it always has. And if you can't afford good insurance, then you'll just have to get another job, a second job, like many of us have had to do. You'll have to work harder. You'll have to find a job that's got better insurance. It will fix itself. And teenagers that are sitting here, this is what I'd say to you. I'd say, sir, I see you've got a skateboard. Do you like skateboarding? Listen, it's the Democrats that want to come in and tell you what kind of helmet you've got to wear and how steep the grade on your ramp that you're going to be skateboarding. They're going to come in, they're going to give you rules, regulations, and they just want to take away all your freedoms. Me? Go skate. Go have a good time. I think it's a good idea to wear a helmet, but that's your decision. If you get hurt, you got to pay the hospital bill. I'm not going to pay it for you, but it is your decision. Why can't we convince people that that's better, that it's better for people to be making their own decisions about health care and safety and things like that, and to get government more and more out of the picture? And I just agree with Bill, and I think that's a no-brainer. So that's my spiel for you can't legislate this, you can't legislate that. It is time for me to go. I've gone on for about an hour and 20 minutes. I have no idea what has happened with Blog Talk Radio. I'm going to go find out here in a little bit, but for all intents and purposes, it looks like the OBS software has done just fantastic. So one more time, I want to get over here and give you this information. So I want you to go and I want you to think about becoming part of the Common Sense Resistance. I hope that it's going well for Bill. I hope I hear back from those folks. But even if I don't, I think it's a really cool idea. And you can go to my webpage. You know what? It's been so long. I've got to go fix that. The rest of this weekend's going to be spent doing that. But it's www.missionradio.webs.com. Is that it? There it is right there. Let's make sure that the site is still up. I'm going to check that out. Yeah, and so you go there, and actually when you pop up to the right of the screen is the logo. It's the fist with the tool, and so that's really cool. So that's missionradio.webs.com, missionradio.webs.com. And then go over to billwhittle.com, join up as a member, send them your $10 a month, and get these guys supported. Thank you so much for joining us on R7 Video. I hope that you're also joining us on R7 Radio, but I have no idea. So I'm going to play the exit music for R7 Radio, and we won't be able to hear it at all. So we'll see how that goes. Good night, everybody.